Goodbye, Warp. Hello, Hyperline. That's also how we could call Stellaris Dev Diary 92. FTL Rework and Galactic Terrain. So FTL Rework. That's speaking for itself, right? There's a big FTL rework. You won't have a choice anymore at Empire Creation. What does this all mean? But later on you might have a choice between different hyper drives, faster than light drives, and galactic terrain. You know about these nebula, right? They give some bonuses and mostly you could ignore them. And these nebulas are going to be intensified in their effects, and then you'll also have special systems that have, similar like to planets, the systems will also have special modifiers. So let's look into the details of this another giant dev diary, and like it's going to change the game massively. Absolutely massively. So they've been thinking about the asymmetrical FTL. And I know there's a lot of people who love, for example, Warp, or who swear by Hyperlane, or... I mean, I haven't met Wormhole lovers. That sounds wrong too, but Wormhole love is going to appear here too. So the problem with Warp and Wormhole and Hyperlanes is that they are working so differently that you cannot achieve a balance or some overview in giant battles. That's what Wiz is addressing here. And like the first part of the dev diary is apologizing for that change, because I think, and that is probably true, a lot of people will miss Warp, because in Hyperlane, I know I've always loved to use Warp, because in Hyperlane you can be blocked so easily. But the thing is, if everyone's using Hyperlane first, you can also block them easily, and this opens up tactical possibilities. So there's a lot of changes, but I always thought Warp was superior because of easiness to use and of flexibility. At the start, Warp would have been quite great. I mean, Hyperlane is probably great for invasion forces, but Warp is otherwise pretty great because you can jump from there to there and nobody can block you, nobody can stop you. Yeah, Warp was, in my eyes, a little bit overpowered. So, explaining that you cannot just expand the system, and because there would be an infinite number of adaptions and stuff, so yeah, you could have blockers for every FTL drive and so on and so on. So they have started to go for Hyperlanes as the standard FTL type at the start. So Hyperlanes are really good for tactical combat. They're also in my pet peeve, Master of Orion 2, that old game that also only uses Hyperlanes. And also some wormholes. And also not Warp, but there will be a little bit something like Warp called the jump drive. You know their jump drive already. This jump drive will enable you to use Warp, but with a cooldown later on. So, Hyperlanes. What would link that to what would Stellaris be with Hyperlanes at the start? It would be like Star Wars. Star Wars also uses Hyperlanes, like the Banks novels of culture, which I love, use like all types of FTL, except Warp, I think. Then Battlestar Galactica uses jump drives and a warpish system. Star Trek uses Warp, so they are more using Warp. Stargate uses wormholes for reasons I don't know, it's very flashy. I've always seen wormholes as flashy, and I haven't really liked the way wormholes worked, but it made sense to me in a story kind of view. But I didn't want to use them myself after testing them around. It's a very vulnerable way to use FTL. It can bring you trouble without end if you're getting caught off guard. So yeah, and then there's some exotics like Dune, who uses the Holtzman drive, where space folds itself, and BattleTech with its hyperspace fields. Well then, so what is the reasoning behind the hyperlanes that are now? Yeah, we have Star Wars Stellaris, if you look at it that way. Star Wars Stellaris. So unified distance, sensor and border systems that make sense for everyone. So you have... I hate you, update. I've got like normal you have borders again. Like that's the big thing. Borders, and you can have fortresses in a sense working somehow like EU4. If you have like capturing fortresses, if your fleet needs to pass a certain point and they can teleport it to them, then you can actually block a system. So you cannot also get out of the gravity well now and jump from anywhere. There are now fixed points coming where you can use the FTL. So you can position like a military fortress, not anymore there, because that has also been changed. We'll have to see. You can place a fleet there, for example. And then, yeah, that is the galactic geography that is spoken about. And terrain, of course. So there might be systems with a defensive bonus, and these systems might be your tactical go-to strategic systems that you use to block your opponents, that you go for very early on in the game to catch them, to just get them, because they cannot be taken back that easily, maybe. And there's also more possibilities for galaxy generation and exploration. Entire regions of space accessible only through a wormhole or a single guarded hyperlane, which is pretty cool. If you know old games like Master of Magic, they always had like the hidden expansion on another plane or something like that. That is really cool. I think like to have that exploration still in the game very late. It makes everything more relevant, for example, in Discovery traditions. Then better performance through caching and unified code. That is really cool. Wormhole FTL in particular is a massive resource hog in the late game. Well, then go for it. Go for it. Because late game performance of Stellaris on a huge map is terrible. Is terrible. If you put it on fastest, it's not fast. It's it's comparable to normal at the start of the game. Even with a good computer, yes. Then warfare with a distinct sense of theaters, advancing, retreating fronts and border skirmishes. More on this in future dev diaries. Nice border skirmishes. So they're going to change probably the combat system as well. And all new forms of FTL are free patch content, so they're not going to take away something from you, put it in a DLC and sell it to you. They are doing the free patch content, even though this is a controversial dev diary, and I can understand people who say, hey, that is bullshit. Somehow I want my warp drive back. It's Star Trek, come on. I mean, who can argue with it's Star Trek? It's Star Trek in a space game. Star Trek is really cool. So, hyperlane and sublight travel. Sublight travel is also changed. You need to actually travel to the entry point to the particular hyperlane, as you can see here. Formerly you also had these things here, these markings, but you could go from every gravity well, or out of the gravity well point, and warp away. That's not going to work anymore. And this means that fleets will move in predictable fashion. Interdictions will frequently happen inside systems instead of nearly always being at the edge of them, in particular allowing for fleets to guard important hyperlane entry and exit points to compensate for the need to move across systems. Sublight travel has been sped up, especially with more advanced forms of thrusters, which is cool. I always wanted the option to have very quick ships. And maybe this will also change the combat. I want to wait how this plays out before saying, hey, this is awesome or this is bad. I think it's a good idea to give it tactical options, because right now chasing fleets is just terrible. It's my least favorite part of the game. The battles are really cool. They could use a little bit more tactical maneuvering. They're really cool to look at, and yeah, the system works, but chasing fleets or stopping fleets, that's just ook. And they want to change that, so I'm thankful. Then we have FTL Sensors change. So instead of simply being a circle radiating an arbitrary distance from a ship, station or planet, each level of sensors can now see a certain distance in FTL connections too. So everyone who's traveling in the FTL, you see along there a ship with level 1 sensors only gives sensor coverage of the same system, while a ship with level 2 gravitic sensors will give sensor coverage of that system and all systems connected to it through a hyperlane or explored wormhole. A ship with level 3 sensors will be able to see systems connected to those systems and so on. So it's like Facebook's friends of friends, the same with sensors and systems. Sensor coverage can be blocked by certain galactic features, which will also block propagation into further connected systems. Currently discussing the implementation of sensor blockers as a potential starbase component, which would be good, I think, but probably irrelevant to the AI again. So only really good in multiplayer and not for the actual single player experience, at least against the AI. And then what else single player experience do you have? Right. Okay. So you can see that here, the tachyon sensors, advanced sensors that rely on rotating tachyon beams to detect ship movements even at extreme distances. So sensor range 4 they have here, and so system and the connection to the system, and you can see half the galaxy with tachyon sensors range 4. There are new utilities here. This looks like shields, but what is it really? Probably someone has seen that already and can tell, right? And we have wormholes. The full-fledged FTL type wormholes is gone. They are not something that can be built anymore. So there are a natural formation that can be encountered while exploring the galaxy. They come in pairs, similar to my pet peeve, Master of Orion 2. If anyone wants a let's play of that, please tell. I'll absolutely do it. I'll fall for it. I think nobody will watch it, or only people that are my age and above, maybe, because when I played it I was very, very young. It works so well. It works so well. Wormholes are special then. Natural wormholes are unstable. When first encountered, you will not be able to explore them. Which makes also sense from a physics point of view, at least as much as I understand from that. So if there's a physics expert, please, how do natural wormholes work? I always thought they were a really close to fantasy, and nobody knows if they really exist, but if they exist, they can lead to parallel universes, or, I don't know, quantum entanglements, or, I don't know. Yeah, how they work. So to explore them, you need the wormhole stabilization technology, after which a science ship can be sent to stabilize and chart the wormhole to find out what lies on the other side. You're lucky this may be unclaimed space full of valuable systems, which they have elaborated further, so there might be wormholes that lead to regions of space that are otherwise unattainable. But it could just as well be a devouring swarm eager to come over for dinner, so there could be the beast in there. The slide-on game setup that controls the frequency of wormhole pairs in the galaxy. So if you have very few pairs, you might have systems in the galaxy that are isolated, maybe, and only crossable with a jump drive. That might also be cool too. The hyperlanes. Whoa. So, what does the natural wormhole here say? In Kuhn Bar, we've detected what appears to be a naturally occurring subspace phenomenon at the edge of the Kuhn Bar system. A rift in the very fabric of space-time has formed here, creating a wormhole that our scientists speculate might provide a conduit through subspace to another wormhole located somewhere else in our galaxy. Depending on where the second wormhole is located, this could potentially allow ships to travel from one end of the galaxy to the other in a matter of days. Unfortunately, this wormhole, like the vast majority of its kind, is inherently unstable. Any vessels foolish enough to pass through it would be ripped apart in seconds, if it could somehow be stabilized. So next gateways. Why are they below wormholes? Because they are like the artificial wormholes. They also connect that, but they are at the start disabled. Were once part of a massive galaxy spanning network, which is part of the Mercatoria, if you've read Banks novels. Like, that is really cool. You would have a massive galaxy spanning network, but because of the fall of a giant civilization, it has been disabled and unusable. But with a gateway reactivation mid-game technology, hefty investment of minerals, they can be restored to working order. They allow for near-instant travel to other gateways, but the difference is that any activated gateway can be used to travel to any other activated gateway. So it's a finding game, it's more exploration. Late-game technology allows for the construction of more gateways to expand the network, probably at fixed gateway points. Unlike wormholes, which cannot be closed, gateways have the advantage of allowing any empire controlling the system they are in to control who goes through said gateway, because they are artificial, technical. Hostile empires and empires to whom you have closed your borders will not be able to use your gateways to just appear inside of one of your systems. So when the first is reactivated, another random gateway will also be reactivated along with it, so that there's never a situation where you just have a single active gateway going nowhere. There's a slider on the game setup that controls also that frequency, so we'll have a lot more in generation, which is pretty cool. There, the jump drive. So, like, the jump drives are very advanced. They are nearly the old warp, and the fleet will make a jump after the charge up and a significant cooldown before it can be used again. So this can be used to skip the hyperlane and all the problems there, but it will also apply a debuff to the fleet using it while the cooldown is in effect, so might be quite long for the jump drive. Then galactic terrain. So enough about FTL now. Galactic terrain is more valuable, more important with the switch to hyperlanes, and which is why they are changing it. They've also decided to implement something we've always thought was a really interesting idea, but which made little sense without such choke points. Galactic terrain. Systems with environmental effects and hazards that have profound tactical and strategic effects on ships and empires. So that's very true prototype. But there are a few things they've started to like hammer in. Like the nails, nebulous block or sensor coverage, or originating from other systems, meaning it's impossible for an empire to see what ships and stations are inside a system in nebula without having a ship or station stationed there, allowing empires to hide their fleets and set up ambushes. Nice. So pulsars, they interfere with deflector technology, nullifying all ship and station shields in a system with a pulsar. That's crazy. Then neutron stars interfere with navigation and ship systems, significantly slowing down sublight travel in a system with a neutron star. That's gonna be interesting as well. Ooh. Also, black holes interfere with FTL, as it would be logical to, increasing the time it takes for a fleet to charge its emergency FTL. That is still there, and making it more difficult to ships to individually disengage from combat. So things getting slowed down. Above is just the first iteration, of course, and there's more information coming about this. This is an example of a pulsar system. Shield nullification plus 100%, so shields are going to be removed. Pulsars are highly magnetized neutron stars that emit beams of electromagnetic radiation. As the star rotates, the radiation beam is only visible. It's pointing directly at the observer. It results in a very precise interval of pulses, which sometimes is so exact that it can be used to measure the passage of time with extreme accuracy. Radiation emitted by pulsars interferes with deflector technology, rendering ship and station shields inoperable. There's the Void Sea Nebula blocking the sensors. That's all in the Fog of War, the new Fog of War. So that was all for today. Whoa! There's more in the Extraterrestrial Thursday stream, which is already done. If you're looking into that, they have talked about the changes a lot there in the design corner, so to say. They're calling it the design corner. It's a 1 hour recording, and if anyone has more details and looked avidly at it, I'm all for it. And now I'm also going to present you some more Twitter teases from Wiz that reveal a little bit more about the borders and stuff. So let's wait for the show to moment. So what we have here is probably a gateway. The really cool gateways and a ship flying through that gateway that just opens. Looks like a black hole, which is pretty cool. Then we have the natural wormhole here. Explore natural wormhole in the system Warsham with your science ship. You could, with a science ship, as you see here, go through the natural wormhole in Warsham and find out what lies on the other side. The dark side of the galaxy. There's a pulsar that we already had. And the abandoned gateway. You can now see the disabled gateway here that can be activated. So an ancient space station has been located at the edge of the Mufrid system. I believe this is new. We haven't seen that. It may be a gateway of some sorts, a theoretical network of similar stations that at some point would have allowed for near instantaneous travel between different parts of the galaxy. Assuming this is a gateway, its current state of disrepair has rendered it unusable, but it could be restored into working order. So this is one of the disabled gateways with its pairs. And this is, where you jump out now. So there's also a lot of good answers in the thread. Among that, like there's of course new pathfinding, and your ships are also going to use things like wormholes automatically if it's the quickest way. So that's good. That's already been answered. So that said, thank you for watching and happy gaming to you. If you like this and other news videos, just subscribe to stay in contact. Otherwise, happy gaming, see you in a following video. And please tell of your opinion on this radical change. Have a good time and happy gaming.